Never did I imagine revealing this story. Yet life, in its unpredictable way, leads us into unexpected territories. Listen closely. My name is Abigail, and I have journeyed through the passage of time for 4 years under the sun's warm embrace. For countless years, I have embraced the role of a lone mother tending to my son without the support of another by my side. Behold, his name is Maverick, and he has now graced the world for 22 years. Have you ever found yourself in a moment where two souls come together, supporting each other through the storms and serenity of life on a single night? An unexpected occurrence unfolded. Maverick, with a tired expression and a heavy heart, lamented his misfortune, confessing that he felt quite unwell. He had labored with unwavering dedication and delved deep into his studies when suddenly an unexpected revelation emerged right before his gaze. I spoke to him. He may linger on my bed for a while if he seeks comfort as the night grows cold in our home, and it takes a moment to reignite the warmth once more. Thus did I envelop him in a heavy, luxurious blanket. At first glance, everything seemed perfectly in place, a devoted mother nurturing her cherished son. Yet as I lay beside him, I felt his presence inch closer. He undoubtedly yearned for the tender caress of intimacy. Without much contemplation, I found myself wrapped in his arms, pulled close as he had done in the tender days of his youth. Though surprised, I decided to let it slide without a second thought. He probably craved the warmth of intimate connection. His warmth wrapped around me, and the cadence of his steady breath sang softly to the quiet as we lay together in blissful tranquility. I noticed Maverick's breath growing faint, as if he were surrendering to the soft allure of sleep. The room was enveloped in an intimate silence, where the steady beat of my heart resonated in my ears. It felt oddly enticing, yet comforting. I stayed motionless, reluctant to disrupt the moment. To provoke him, he proclaimed to me, "'Tis merely a mother offering comfort to her child." Yet after a brief moment, he stirred again, moving closer to me under the cozy warmth of the blanket. As his arm tightened around me, I felt a rush of conflicting emotions, leaving me momentarily frozen in a whirlwind of doubt. A part of me craved to speak the truths that could push me away, while another piece held firm in its quiet resolve. An electric atmosphere enveloped the room, tantalizing and mysterious, leaving me in a swirl of confusion, unaware of what stirred beneath the surface. Mine heart did feel thus. Then there happened a most unexpected and thrilling event that caught me off guard. As I sank into the gentle warmth of the blanket, I stumbled upon a surprising rigidity that caught me off guard. Behold, it crept up on me unexpectedly, causing my heart to race with anticipation. With a passionate heart, I fought to keep my cool, always aware that he was my own flesh and blood. Perhaps he was completely oblivious to it. As I lay on the ground, I fought to push away the rising storm of feelings that surged within me. In the depths of my heart, I murmured quietly, "It's just a brief moment, an intriguing and uncomfortable lull that will soon disappear." However, as time slipped by, I realized that things had transformed, leaving me uncertain about how to handle this new reality. Maverick lingered close, his breath a steady cadence, and I could feel the heat simmering between us. As I matured, a longing ignited within me to share a playful quip, to ease the tension that hung thick in the atmosphere. Yet the right words slipped through my fingers. In that moment, I was captivated, lost in a whirlwind of feelings, unsure of the true nature of my heart's chaos. Then Maverick moved with a tantalizing elegance, lifting his head to lock his eyes onto mine. His gaze held a softness that I had never noticed before, a look that ignited a mix of comfort and unease within me. Even though he remained silent, his intense gaze seemed to question everything. "Is all well?" I tried to muster a smile, hoping to lighten the strange heaviness in my chest, but instead it only thickened the silence that surrounded us. Maverick's hand lingered on my arm, radiating warmth and tenderness, a constant presence in its hold. I caught sight of his fingertips, gently tracing paths, as if entranced, oblivious to everything beyond. Even in its simplicity, each tender touch ignited a passion within me, a heat I could neither ignore nor resist. With my breath steady, I worked to conceal the storm raging inside, afraid he might notice the passionate rhythm of my heart. In a haze of confusion, I was rendered speechless and motionless, lying there, caught in the intoxicating embrace that consumed me entirely. In the quiet that surrounded us, I murmured to my own heart that this was merely a mother's gentle comfort for her son, nothing more yet. In that silence, uncertainties began to awaken. With just the two of us under the sheets, my mind spun in a storm of unease, emotions that felt out of place, yet I couldn't shake them off. He was, and as I lay there with him so close, I felt an intensity that ran deep, a connection that my own heart could scarcely comprehend. Indeed, a whirlwind of confusion and heat surrounded me, an unexpected feeling that left me utterly still. Maverick seemed completely unaware of the storm brewing within me. He hovered close, his fingers brushing softly, a soothing touch to my soul, as if it were the most natural gesture under the stars. His breath flowed with a calm, seductive rhythm, his eyes fluttered shut again, and I wondered if the soft allure of sleep had finally taken hold of him. Ah, but behold, his hand moved with a slow, deliberate elegance, gliding softly up my arm. A thrilling sensation swept over me as he opened his eyes, locking his gaze onto mine with an intensity that sent sparks flying. In his gaze, a question lingered, as if he yearned to uncover whether all was well, if perhaps he too sensed that tantalizing pull that stirred deep within his heart. In whispered breaths, his name lingered, barely escaping the confines of her lips. I longed to stop this path. Yet he approached, then pulled away, creating a distance between us. Yet, in some way, I found myself unable to move, for the tension that lingered between us was a powerful force, like a quiet storm building strength. In the stillness of that intimate space, silence enveloped us, yet the atmosphere crackled with unspoken desires and hidden truths. Webb sensed a tantalizing pull within, yet his words eluded him, and as if guided by an irresistible urge, he moved closer still. My heart raced with an intense urgency, while my thoughts swirled like a wild storm, yet I found myself unable to pull away. I found myself caught between two realms, embodying the role of Ash's mother. Yet unfamiliar feelings stirred within me as he approached with an alluring closeness. My breath caught, and all thoughts vanished, leaving only that one intimate moment we shared. Maverick's hand rested gently on my shoulder, his fingers lingering as if he too was caught in a moment of uncertainty. The world around us faded into obscurity, and all I could see was the inviting warmth of his presence, the steady beat of his heart echoing in that precious moment. With my eyes tightly closed, I tried to calm the storm inside, urging myself to step back from the closeness that both bewildered and consumed me. Behold, his hand gently lifted, caressing a stray lock of hair from my face with a delicate touch. A seemingly modest gesture of goodwill, cloaked in simplicity, stirred emotions within me that ran deep and eluded my understanding. As my eyelids fluttered open, he was there looking at me with an intensity that stirred something deep within. I could see every tiny freckle on his face, the soft curve of his lips, and the way his eyes searched mine, revealing an unspoken connection that pulsed in the air around us. In his gaze, a vulnerability lingered, reflecting my own, and I realized he too was lost in this ephemeral moment, as if caught in a serene hush, where time itself had come to a standstill. My mind whirled with intense desires and unspoken secrets, a tumult of questions and doubts that danced just out of reach, while my body remained motionless, ensnared by invisible ties. To him my heart was bound, this spirit I had cared for, yet, in that brief moment, he seemed like a stranger, an entity entirely unknown. As I contemplated this reality, In that hushed moment, we could linger forever, but Maverick, with a soft pull, broke the enchantment that held us captive. He turned his eyes away, a flush of embarrassment coloring his cheeks, and let out a shaky laugh, his fingers seeking comfort at the back of his neck. It called to mind a fleeting moment, a whisper in time where I felt the closeness of our spirits, the intensity of our shared experiences, and suddenly the weight of it all hit me with overwhelming power. May took a deep breath, trying to steady herself against the whirlwind of emotions that seemed to surge from every corner of her being. With an intense yearning, I hoped he stayed unaware of the storm swirling deep inside me. "Forgive me, dear mother," he murmured, his voice soft and trembling, a trace of uncertainty woven into his words. My intention was never to create such an unusual atmosphere. He turned his eyes away from me, and for a brief instant, I caught a glimpse of the faintest blush coloring his cheeks, a sign that perhaps he too was grappling with his own inner turmoil. Amidst a whirlwind of intense feelings, I struggled to keep them in check. Frozen longed to provide comfort, to reassure him that everything was fine, that this awkwardness changed nothing in their connection. Yet the right words slipped away from her. In that hushed moment, I found myself caught in a web of contemplation, grappling with the weight of silence. Suddenly, a revelation pierced through the stillness. I had never felt so disconnected from my very essence. With a sultry caress, I let my fingers glide over his shoulder, yearning for this intimate gesture to offer him a taste of comfort and connection. A sultry smile danced at the corners of my lips as I aimed to melt away the tension that hung thick in the atmosphere. Though I could feel my own apprehension intertwining with my words. "Do not worry, my dear Maverick," I whispered softly, my voice flowing like a gentle stream, aiming to calm your restless soul. "Indeed, it has been just the two of us for quite some time, hasn't it? We have become familiar with it, but now it feels a bit strange." He nodded in understanding, and I caught a brief spark of relief flicker in his eyes, as if my words had resonated deeply within him. As the atmosphere became increasingly tranquil, behold, the doorbell rang, interrupting the fragile tranquility we had just begun to create. The sharp chime of the bell pulled us from our daydream, a vivid reminder of the world waiting just outside that door. With urgency, I sprang to my feet, my heart still racing from the conversation, a strange sense of appreciation washing over me for the unexpected disruption. As I approached the door, I felt my heart race, unable to shake off the tantalizing energy that lingered from my conversation with Maverick. As the door swung open, I found Elias, our neighbor, poised at the entrance, eager for my arrival. With a charming smile lighting up his familiar face, he offered me an instant feeling of comfort. However, I noticed that his eyes lingered on me just a bit longer than usual, as if he were searching for something deeper behind the surface. With urgency, I gathered myself, my heart racing, hoping that the echoes of earlier tension would not reveal themselves to his keen eyes. "Listen closely, enchanting Abigail and gallant Elias. Listen closely." Abigail welcomed with a sultry charm, her voice a captivating and inviting tune. As I reflected, I found it appropriate to drop by and see if you require anything. The coolness of the season is starting to settle in, and if you find yourself facing any issues with your heating, I'm here to help you out. His considerate demeanor offered a brief escape, and in that fleeting moment, an overwhelming wave of appreciation washed over me. In Elias's tender embrace, I allowed myself to revel in the warm caress of solace, easing the haunting whispers of Eunice. "Oh, how I appreciate you, Elias," I declared, offering him a smile that carried a hint of deeper honesty from that moment on. Indeed, the atmosphere in the home becomes a bit more charged, especially as darkness descends. Your help, dear Elias, would be greatly appreciated by me. As I stepped inside, a sense of confidence enveloped me, and behold, I felt Maverick's eyes on us, quick and elusive from the corner of my vision. Behold, I gazed upon his face, a mystery cloaked in darkness. his expression a puzzle that intrigued me deeply. However, the way he looked at us stirred a fleeting pang of unease deep within me. In that moment, I thought I caught a flicker of something like jealousy in his eyes, but just as quickly, he masked his expression, returning to his usual aloofness. The look caught me off guard, filling me with a disquieting feeling that perhaps Maverick held deeper emotions than I had realized. As Elias wandered through the living room checking the heater, he struck up a casual conversation asking about the happenings at home and how I was managing through it all. His voice a sultry murmur wrapped around me, like a warm embrace, while his presence, intoxicating and magnetic, ignited a sense of ease I had never anticipated. As time slipped by, my gaze inevitably drifted back to Maverick, who lingered in the hallway with an intense stillness, watching us with a look that held a heavy silence, thickening the atmosphere around us with unspoken feelings. The atmosphere in the room shifted subtly, and I, engulfed in a whirlwind of feelings, reached out for Elias, hoping to offer comfort, while trying to soothe the tension I sensed rising within Maverick. Behold, it felt like they were locked in a wordless duel for my attention, and I became lost in the delicate space that existed between them. As I looked at Maverick once more, a flicker ignited in his eyes, a hint of hidden feelings that lingered just beneath the surface. But before I could delve into the depths of that uncharted territory, the moment faded like a whisper in the night. Elias turned to me, his face glowing with a smile that filled the room. "Everything seems just fine here, Abigail," he said, his voice rich with warmth. "Just call on me if you need anything else, Maverick." I conveyed my appreciation, and as he crossed the threshold, I could hardly suppress the electric tension that lingered between Maverick and me, thickening the atmosphere and complicating everything around us. I gently closed the door behind me, and as I turned around, there was Maverick in the hallway, arms crossed tightly over his chest, his expression serious, his eyes unwavering. In his posture a clear truth lingered. What had happened between us was still far from resolved. "How art thou, my cherished Maverick?" With a voice soft yet insistent, I asked, seeking to uncover the mystery of the divide that had suddenly appeared between us. I craved to uncover the secrets hidden in his mind, to understand why the distance between us seemed to grow more palpable with every passing second. He gave a subtle, almost dismissive shrug, his voice barely breaking the silence as he murmured, I am well. Behold. The unexpected presence of Elias caught me completely off guard. That's all there is to it. His words hung in the air, but they did little to reveal the storm of emotions swirling just out of sight. I wanted to reach out to ask more to understand why this felt different, but before I could form another question, he turned and walked past me, heading toward his room, without sparing me another glance. The silence between us was deafening, and the soft click of the door closing behind him felt like the final seal on the conversation that had barely even begun. I stood there for a moment, rooted to the spot, overwhelmed by an odd mixture of relief, confusion, and an unsettling sense that something important had been left and said. I found myself staring at the closed door to Maverick's room, my heart heavy with a sense of loss. I couldn't quite put into words. It was as if something had shifted between us, something unspoken that hung in the air like a cloud waiting to burst. My mind replayed everything the way we'd been so close earlier, the subtle way his gaze lingered when Elias was here, and that undeniable tension that had simmered just. Beneath the surface threatening to break free, I made my way to my own room and sank down onto the edge of the bed, my thoughts racing, as it tried to process everything that had just happened. I knew that I couldn't ignore it forever, that sooner or later we would have to face whatever it was that was changing between us. But I wasn't sure how to start, where to even begin entangling this web of emotions, just as I was lost and thought I heard a soft knock at my door. My heart skipped a beat of sudden hope flaring up in my cast. Maybe it was Maverick, returning to talk, come in. I called, my voice steadier than I felt. The door creaked open, and there he was, standing in the doorway, with that unreadable expression I had come to know so well. He stepped inside and sat next to me on the bed, his hands folded in his lap, his gaze fixed downward, the silence between as Maverick breaks. The silence stretched on thick and heavy, as if a weight of everything unsaid was too much to bear. The moment felt almost suffocating, yet somehow necessary finally. Maverick broke the silence, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom." He began his words tentative, as if he were choosing each one carefully. "I don't know what's going on. I'm sorry if I made things weird earlier, He trailed off the words, seemingly stuck in his throat, his frustration clear as he struggled to articulate the emotions he couldn't fully express. I reached out and placed my hand on his, offering a quiet reassurance, a gentle squeeze that said more than words could. "Maverick." "It's okay," I replied softly, in my voice, steady despite the uncertainty that swirled within me. Maybe we're both feeling a little lost right now. It's been just the two of us for so long, and sometimes things get complicated. It's okay to feel confused. He nods slowly, his eyes still focused on his hands, a distant look in them. There was a weight in his gaze, a depth of emotion that made my heart ache. Then, after what seemed like an eternity, I finally lifted his eyes to meet mine. His gaze was filled with some anti-emotions, uncertainty, frustration, longing, and something else that I couldn't quite name, but it felt different. It wasn't just the usual frustration or confusion. There was something else there, something and unspoken. I didn't know how to respond. I murmured his voice so quiet that I almost missed the words. It was as if he were afraid to admit, yet afraid to confront whatever had been building between us. The vulnerability in his words hit me harder than I expected, and in that moment, I understood just how much this was affecting him too. I could feel the weight of my own heart aching in response to the confusion in his eyes. For a moment, the urge to reach out and hold him close overwhelmed me. I wanted to wrap him in my arms, tell him everything would be okay, reassure him that we could navigate through this together. But I hesitated, unsure whether that would truly help or if it would complicate matters even more. What he needed was unclear, and I wasn't sure if my instinct to comfort him was the right course of action, so instead, I remained still, allowing the heavy silence between us to speak louder than words ever could. I sat there feeling the weight of the unspoken tension, waiting for the right moment, unsure of how to break the stillness. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I took a deep breath, studying myself, and turned to face him. I looked into his eyes, searching for any sign of what he was feeling, what he might need from millennia. Maybe we just need to take a step back and really think about everything. I sighed softly, trying to find the right words, the right balance between reassurance and understanding. It's okay to feel close to each other, but it's also okay to need space to sort for your thoughts. We don't have to have everything figured out right this moment. He nodded slowly, as if the weight of my words was sinking in. But then, in an unexpected movement that caught me off guard, he leaned his head on my shoulder. It was a gesture that immediately took me back to the days when he was younger, when he would often seek comfort in that familiar way. It felt warm, soothing, and yet there was something different about it now. There was a tension beneath the surface that I couldn't ignore, a quiet recognition that things between us had changed in ways we hadn't fully understood yet. My heart softened at the touch, and without thinking, I wrapped my arm around him, pulling him close, in a way that felt protective and comforting. It was an embrace that offered safety, even though I knew the questions lingering between us were far from being answered. There was so much unspoken, so many emotions we hadn't fully processed yet. But in that moment, I realized that maybe we didn't need all the answers right now. We could maybe take it step by step, figure it out together, even if the path ahead felt uncertain and complicated. As we sat there holding on to each other, I felt a sense of quiet calm wash over me. There was a soft and spoken hope that lingered in the air, that no matter what we were facing, no matter how difficult things might seem, we could still find a way through this together. We stayed like that for a while, wrapped in silence, the closeness between us offering a fleeting sense of peace. For a brief moment, it felt as though the confusion and complexity of our situation might dissolve simply by being near each other. But I knew deep down that it wasn't that simple. The comfort of his presence was undeniable. But beneath that warmth, there was an undercurrent of unease, a feeling neither of us could fully shake off. After a while, Maverick pulled away slightly, lifting his head and meeting my gaze. His serious intensity expression had shifted the comfort of the moment, giving way to a serious intensity. "Mum, I don't know what to do with all these feelings," he said quietly, his voice laced with uncertainty. "I don't want to make things harder between us, but I can't just ignore it either." In his words lingered in the air, thick with unspoken tension, like a question that he didn't have the courage to voice. The weight of his silence pressed down on me, and I swallowed hard, my mind racing in frantic circles as I scrambled to find the right words. I opened my mouth, but before I could say anything, there came another knock at the door. We both jolted at the sound, startled by the interruption. Our yes, locking in surprise and uncertainty. The knock was firm, deliberate, almost as if the person on the other side sensed something was amiss and needed to break through. Whatever was hanging between us, a wave of nervous energy washed over me, and without thinking I stood up and walked to the door. When I opened it, Elias was standing there, once again his face clouded with concern, as though he had been weighing something heavy in his mail. He said, his voice laced with genuine worry, "Sorry to bother you, just wanted to check if everything was okay. You seemed a bit off earlier, and I wanted to make sure you're all right." I hesitated for a moment, then glanced over my shoulder at Maverick. He was watching us closely, his expression unreadable. There between us, charged with unspoken questions. I took a deep breath, trying to steady my voice, though it trembled slightly as I answered, "Thanks, Elias, but we're fine, just having a quiet evening." Elias gave me a long, searching look, then turned his gaze to Maverick. His eyes lingered on him, thoughtful and probing. Before returning to me, he nodded slowly, though something in his demeanor suggested he wasn't fully convinced, all softening. "Right," he said, his tone softening. "Just remember, I'm next door if you need anything. Don't hesitate." When he turned and left, I closed the door with a quiet click and leaned against it for a moment, gathering my thoughts. I turned back to Maverick, who was still standing there, watching me with an intensity that made Madam's skin prickle. His eyes seemed to pierce through me, searching for something, for the truth perhaps, or for reassurance. After a long pause, he stood up, his movements slow and deliberate, and I felt my heart pick up its pace once again. The air between us felt heavy, thick with all the things neither of us dared to say. He moved closer and embraced myself for whatever words might come next, but when he reached me, he stopped, his expression shifting, as though he were battling some internal struggle. Maybe we shouldn't push this, Mom," he said, his voice quiet, trembling. "Just a little. Maybe we need time to think." "No," his words hit me like a wave, and I nodded, my own heart aching with the same conflicted emotions he must have been feeling. I understood the need for space, for time to figure things out. "You're right, Maverick," I replied softly, my voice thick with the weight of everything unsaid. "We both need to think about everything, we can't rush this." Maverick nodded in agreement, and we stood there in silence, our proximity, strange mixture of closeness and distance, as if we were on the brink of something we couldn't fully grasp or control. It felt like an ending, but also the beginning of something new, something we couldn't quite define yet. As he walked slowly to his room, I remained rooted to the spot, wondering what the future would hold for us and whether we could find a way forward together or part. Thank you for staying with us until the end before we say goodbye. If you have not yet subscribed, I invite you to press the subscribe button. Your support, even if it seems like a small gesture, means a lot to us and drives us to continue creating content with heart. Don't forget to give it a like. If you liked what we shared today, as every interaction helps us grow and allows us to continue connecting with you through stories that matter, thank you for being part of this community. See you next time.